Hello, Miss Stacey Sussman. How are you? Thank you for chatting with me today.
Hello, love.
I'm going to talk to you about your business and your experience with the Gab Accelerator and Gab CEO, but I'm curious because sometimes what happens when we've made progress and strides and we're hitting milestones and hitting goals, it's hard to remember the frustration and the pain we were feeling at the beginning of a journey. So I'm curious, do you remember what you were feeling and what made you join Gab Accelerator in the first place?
Yes. I remember like looking around, and I don't have coworkers, so it's more like this virtual looking around and seeing people that started their businesses after me and accelerated or appeared to accelerate from a revenue standpoint far beyond what I was doing. And I feel like it wasn't a lack of me trying, but like I wasn't getting as far as some of those people were doing from a revenue standpoint. And I'm like, I'm better or just as good as those people. And so why am I not hitting those strides?
Yeah, awesome. And then I know that you did the accelerator portion quite some time ago, even though all of you guys always get to come back and have refreshes. I was at this event recently and there's a whale watching um, in this part of the world, and the brochure with the whale watching on it actually says lifetime guarantee that you will see a whale, like guaranteed to see whales on this trip. And I need to ask somebody for the brochure because the whole sales premise of it is if you don't see a whale on the boat ride you take, we allow you to take as many boat rides as it takes for you to see a whale. And I was like, that's like the Gap Accelerator.
Coming back for more.
I know people are always like, why do you do that? And I'm like, because there's things that you don't sometimes see about your business the first time around, or there are things that you're not ready to hear or not ready to work on. And you shouldn't even work on those things if you're not in the right place for them. So you've been with me for some time and you've kind of dipped back in before you joined Gab CEO. So do you remember when you did the accelerator piece of it? What was the biggest kind of breakthrough that you had in that experience?
Yeah, so I think if I'm getting this right, I think it's like a year and a half since I've taken the accelerator. I think I took it when I don't know, your first official public V1. It was like March, April of like 23,
Mhm.
maybe.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was beginning of March 23.
Yeah. So I feel like it was recommended to me by a friend who was basically like, you need to do this. And she and I are accountability buddies for years now. And she told me about it. I think I talked to you and you were like, it starts Friday. And I was just like, okay, sold, we're done. And so I think the biggest breakthrough is I thought I was using my time wisely, and I don't think I actually was.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, because I remember from that first time, you got really, if I remember correctly, it seemed like you got really clear on your marketing channel that you needed to be in and where you needed to be spending your time.
Yes, I would say that was the biggest takeaway is like what you always said, like, well, it's one channel you need to be on. Because I feel like self-promotion is not something that comes naturally to me, but I feel like if I started looking around, why did these people probably get so far ahead? They were impressed, they were talking about themselves, people were referring them because they were constantly talking about themselves and their business. And I felt like I was doing that well, but in hindsight, I actually don't think I was.
Hmm. So I remember that because I remember asking you, you were starting to get all this traction publicly. And I remember asking you, like, what are you doing to get all, and you were like, I'm literally doing what you said to do.
Yep,
I
I'm talking about myself.
was like, oh, great. Awesome. Cool. Do you remember you took a little bit of a break and then came back and joined our advanced program, Gab CEO? Do you remember why you chose to join Gab CEO?
I think I miss the weekly accountability because, like, I am a good student in that, like, you're like, okay, go do this, and I'll like go do it. But you need like coworkers, like in this entrepreneurial world. It gets very, very lonely. And I feel like what the CEO gives me is this like pod of amazing women and maybe men at some point, but it's really women at this point that just like root you on and cheer you on and think you're awesome and think you're amazing. And I think I needed that because I have like the workforce part of me, but I needed the like cheerleaders all the time. And we see these same people week in and week out every few days. So I feel like we've become this virtual posse that I've never met most of them except for you. And I feel like I needed that. And I don't think I realized I need that. And you always say like, you got to build the muscle on Mondays. You have like CEO hours. And I was like, what is this lady talking about? But now, like, it's been a while. I'm like, okay, on Mondays, we check out our week. On Fridays, we check out our numbers. And I'm constantly going back to your command center. I use it all the time.
Yeah. Do you remember when you entered into Gab CEO, we created like a shift in your strategy and your focus and your offers. Do you remember some of the biggest breakthroughs that you've had in that experience?
Yes. So, I mean, I think the voice of customer, understanding the pain, I like knew marketing, but I didn't know like the messaging and how to talk to people's like fears and what keeps them up at night. And that was like always my question I'd ask, like if you had to put your head on a pillow, what would keep you up at night? But like wasn't really getting like deep into what it was like surface level of what it is. But now it's like, oh, these people are afraid they're gonna like lose their job. Like that's a real fear as a CMO or a CRO. So I think that was a big aha moment, like learning how to actually speak to them. And if I watch my like LinkedIn content, it was very generic. And now even today I posted, I'm having this like disaster with my son at school and I'm fighting with the school and I have gastroenterologist and I have the principal and the behavioral specialist. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like how I would tackle a business problem. And I just like put it on LinkedIn today because it's just like so relevant. So I feel like even my writing has gone from like generic chat GPT to like generic chat GPT, but insert Stacey's messaging, insert my people's problems. And the channel has almost been like therapeutic for me too. But besides I'm giving free business advice, I feel like it's been like therapeutic for me to like hone that messaging and that skill. And then the other piece I'll say is pricing. I think the big aha was pay my contractors, pay Stacey as an employee, and pay the business. That was like a huge differential for me. And now I actually have money sitting in the bank account that I could do stuff with. That is like, wow, there's like money. How could I invest in myself? And like, I just like re-up to be in the Gab CEO for another 6 months. And so it's like, yes, I'm saving that, as my dad would say, for like a rainy day, but like, I found having that pot of money for the business to be able to reinvest in the business with fractional teams, messaging, podcast team, illustrator, soon to be ghostwriter. Like I could see the compound effect of the growth. I don't have employees now, but I can see the compound effect of the growth of having people help me. And I'm not as scared to spend the money because I feel good that money's coming in because I'm valued for the work that I'm doing and the pricing. And we just delivered an audit yesterday and I charged the client $10,000. And a year and a half ago, I've been like, no one's ever paying me $10,000 for the
No one
audit.
would pay me for an audit.
And I tried to get it for 12. I sold it for 10. And that wasn't the whole take home, because we had to pay the contractors and stuff. But I was just like, you know what? This was actually worth 12,000. So the next time it's going to go out for 14 and then they can pay me 12 for it. So I think just having confidence, the pricing model of contractors, Stacey, the team, Rev Up Advisory gets a pool, and then having the confidence to like go out with these numbers That's huge. And that goes back to like the Tuesdays that we meet all the time about.
Yeah. Tuesdays is CEO mindset that one thing is I always think about it, one thing is the building blocks of business and having confidence in the strategy. And then you build your inner confidence to stand by the strategy. Because I remember when you and I looked together at your pricing model, and I remember when the audit was going to be 7,500 and you had resistance to that number.
Yep.
So even hearing that now you're realizing, oh, it's really worth 12,000 internally, I'm like, yes.
And I would say the reason that I picked you, and I think it was almost like serendipitous, because I wouldn't say I like shopped coaches around at the end of the day. I always wanted a coach. I honestly never think I could have afforded it because that's like the scarcity mindset coming in. But someone referred me to you that I really, really trust. And so when I met you, you kind of walked me through the program, and it's obviously like evolved since then. But what I love about you is the structure and the building blocks and the math and the Excel and the brains of like a true operator, because we are really matched that way. But where you stretch me and I wouldn't do it is I call it like the woo-woo part of your coaching. I am signed up for my tapping. I'm tapping with the woman tomorrow. One of the people that came in on your Mindset Tuesdays. And I've started working with an acupuncturist that goes to like the Himalayan mountains and like meets with like shamans and stuff. This week I'm going to meet with an energy healer that asked if I know who Joe Dispenza is.
And you're like, well, yes, I do.
And like, I wouldn't a year ago, but now that Sally talks about it all the time, I do. So I feel like, I think you've taught me, and I don't know if I've said this to you, is like, there's things you loved about yourself as like a child at the end of the day, and like life happens, you get married, you have babies and all that stuff, and you have it like in your bank, but you like forget about it. And I think you've helped me get like full circle, and I'm in my 40s now, and I'm just like, I just need to like show up authentically as myself. I never tried to pretend to be someone, but one of my really good friends who we were wild and crazy in New York in my 20s was just like, what happened to that like 20-year-old confident Stacey that was like so fun to be around and like a badass and like didn't give a shit about what anyone said? And I was like, yeah, I don't like know. And so I feel like this program has given that back to me, which is like a gift to myself. But then the business has grown, the revenue has grown, my confidence in myself has grown. So it's so much more than the money. And that's why when you loomed me yesterday about, the numbers are great, but what is it you really want, which I will tell you off camera, that's been the biggest gift.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull a Joe Dispenza on you. When he brings people on stage to talk about some major healing they have, the person's so excited about being in this new place or what life is like now or whatever. And he's like, and he's always like, remind the people what the disease was or what you were struggling with. So I am very, like, my theory is woo-do. I'm not woo-woo, I'm woo-do. There you have to combine. I like to combine both. But just for the people, let's just say, I think we have more than 3x your revenue.
Yeah, we're about to hit that stretch. Actually, we're gonna overhit the stretch goal based on my calculations.
Okay, amazing. So we had an aggressive goal. We passed it. And I also want to say, and now you're going for the stretch goal.
For the people, I had a double the revenue goal. That was the goal for the program in 6 months. We've doubled the revenue. Then I had a stretch goal. And then I had this in my head, like, I don't think we'll ever hit that goal. I think I don't think we'll ever hit that goal. That's going to happen this year.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the people who are like, give me the deets, those are the deets. But what really lights me up is when you and I did our 6-month check-in progress, right? Because I do a deep audit at the beginning of the 6 months, and then I let you do the audit again at 6 months and you get to answer the same questions. So we see where you've come. For me, the revenue goals, those are great. Those are fun. But for me, what was most satisfactory was when I asked you, how do you feel right now? How are you doing? How do you feel? I don't know if you remember what you said. Can I?
A baby bird example? I can get, is that it? My
No.
baby bird business.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember? Yeah.
Yeah, I said a year ago, so I know it was July of last year, July of 23, I guess. And that's just when I had come back to Gap CEO. I think I came back in like August, maybe. I was debating shutting down the business. I was just like, the voices in my head were too much. I was doing therapy, and I was just like, maybe like this is not what I meant to be. And I said I was a baby bird broken business. And I almost was going to shut the door. And I talked to two people about like going under their umbrella, which I have done before. And then I joined your program. I'm just like, fuck it, I'm just going to give this like a go, because I don't listen to the conventional norms. And I usually just say, okay, voices in my head, but we're not going to follow that advice anyway. And I didn't do it. And it's been a year, and the business is thriving, and I have people that work under me, and that's enormous in my mind.
And when I asked you, I'm going to remind you this because it was powerful for me when I asked you, how do you feel now that we're doing this review and looking at your answers and looking at your numbers and looking at where you've come in 6 months, you were like, I'm ready to take over the world.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, who is this person? That is not the Stacey who joined Gab CEO.
My board from our call the other day wrote, my future self is fucking awesome. And it's on my board next to me.
Yeah, she is. And you're constantly calling her into the present, which makes me super excited. Well,
I feel like it goes in ebbs and flows, but I never think I understood what you mean. You always have these like good visuals, and you're like, it was this chart with the different colors, and it's like, if you're working in your flow, you need to be like in this color. And in the last like couple of weeks, like I'll have like a discovery call, and then I'll jump on one of your calls, and then I'll listen to a podcast, and then I'll watch like some video, and there's like an interwoven thread of themes between all these calls. And I'm like, I think this is what working in your flow is, that it's all interconnected. And I did the human design reading, and I'm a projector. And
like,
so,
yeah.
yeah. And so it's like teaching and guiding, and it's just like reaffirm that I'm like, oh my God, this is actually what I'm supposed to be doing in life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Well, thank you for taking the time to give me this kind of play-by-play breakdown. Is there anything that you would want to say to somebody considering or curious about starting with the Gab Accelerator for their business?
Yes. So this is the honest truth. I think going with you and going into your program is obviously it's a financial commitment. So you need to be prepared and ready for that. I think it's well worth the money, but that is a blockage and a factor for people. So once you move past that and you trust your gut and you're like, I'm going to do this, I want to say, like, it took a long time for me to get to like a year, a double revenue ROI. So I'm like, I paid Sally X and my business compounded to Y, and we doubled the revenue, and the program tenfold paid for itself. So I think people want to say in 6 months, the revenue is going to double. And like, that's just like, that's the end product of like the program at the end of the day. But that's not actually what you get. You get so many other intangibles from the program. And so you can't say, I spent $10,000 and I got $30,000 in value. I think it's a little hard to quantify what that looks like. So I think you just have to be ready, like sort of eyes closed, half eyes open, and just like, I'm ready to jump into the program because I trust in my gut and my business. This is what I need right now. And some of the metrics will be quantifiable over 6 months, or for me, it really took like a year where I could say to you, I can quantify the numbers, but I was willing to stick with it. But some of the stuff is intangible and have been like gifts to myself, and that you can't really put a number on that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you're going to get the tangibles. And I find, which always kind of blows me away, is that people talk to me more about the intangibles, which
Because
is
I would
for
never have
me is
saw
always really
that.
interesting. I'm a very tangible first coach, and
Yes.
I'm like sneaking in I'm always
Yeah.
like sneaking in the intangible and the mindset and the spirit and the energetics. And I love that people, what they feel at the end of the day, what they talk about most is that, even though it's like, oh yeah, and the revenue's there. Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
doing great. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the cliff notes to like the energy healers at the end of the day, because like what I do for business is give them the cliff notes to like accelerate their sales and revenue and marketing growth. But you're like doing that for me in this whole woo and do part of life, whereas like I could have figured it out on myself by myself, but it might have taken me 3 to 5 years to figure it out. And we're gonna do it in a year, and we'll probably continue doing it after that first year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.